You know that feeling of starting something new or starting over? This feeling in healing where you've done it before, you didn't quite make it through, or you didn't get past something that you were trying to get through. Maybe you set a goal and you didn't quite make it. What if the reason it didn't stick or that it didn't transform as much as you wanted to isn't because that you weren't strong enough, lucky enough, that you weren't enough in the effort, but that the floor wasn't laid yet? What if instead of a goal, you need ground? And that's where we start in the Heart-Mind method. Hi, I'm Holli Sin, and I'm so glad to be back with Heartmind with Holli. This is a second season. I took a tiny break, but in that tiny break, really setting some foundations for this work, this method, and for the podcast to truly start to thrive in this next year. The very ground of this method is vulnerable accountability. And really, it's not safe necessarily to be vulnerable everywhere. It's not, we know this. I mean, that's why uh, I'll get pushback, resistance in being vulnerable often. And we've got to find those safe places and spaces in order for us to be. But it's through vulnerability, opening up to ourselves, to our own wounds, and to also our own dreams, our own innocence and life force energy that is vibrant. It's that vulnerable opening where really truly the magic happens. And the vulnerable accountability is our own capacity and willingness to go there. And that's really hard to find if we've been in spaces and places where that vulnerability has not been safe. That vulnerability is not okay. And so the first ground is finding within yourself, which is very hard, finding it with support and showing up with a baseline that if I am vulnerable, that my body and my mind and the system are going to show me the next step. Maybe not the 20th step, maybe not a step 6 months from now, although we can try to meet that timeline, but maybe just one tiny step. It can be just simply an acknowledgement, going back to a pillar. But in order to acknowledge, we have to show up. We have to come to the breath. We have to bring our awareness here. That's the floor. And it takes vulnerability to bring our awareness here into our bodies, doesn't it? I mean, I know it does for me. But after doing it for decades, it feels less and less vulnerable. But once I come down into the body, it's going to show me where I am. Like I said, not every space you are meant to be vulnerable. And in fact, we are meant to be a warrior. We're meant to be armed in certain places and spaces. In others, we need that vulnerable ground in order to replenish, in order to know ourselves. And so when I run these groups and even independent private sessions, the idea here is that we start with a willingness and sweetness to a vulnerable state. And that we trust the vulnerable state is, again, where we're going to get the material we need. So a lot of people will, and this is what our world is based on really with capitalism and with our sense of business, is will set goals without actually having a strong foundation. And then there's lots of steps between meeting that goal and foundation action steps. But the first step, especially in healing work, especially in when we're trying to really start to meet ourselves, is to show up to the vulnerable parts of ourselves. And you can't do it without vulnerability. There have been many times that I've worked with very, very successful people, doctors, lawyers. And the step that I have to invite them into is being vulnerable with their colleagues, being vulnerable with their partners. This is a very hard thing to do, and it requires us to actually be vulnerable with ourselves. But the very first step of that change is a sense of knowing whether that person, space, place is ready to be vulnerable with. So tuning into that and plugging into those spaces, places, relationships where it is, and starting to step into that vulnerability. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a wound, although often wounds are a part of it, but it could also be, again, stepping into your greatness, stepping into your longing, stepping into your wishes, desires, stepping into what you really genuinely care about. So many of us with our little ones, I know this has been true for me, when we show that real, genuine, vulnerable side, it can get scoffed at, it can get trampled on, and that will keep us from thinking that that is okay to be in. When in fact, it is literally the key that will start to open up the change that you're seeking. And it's the key. So you walk through the door and then you're on that foundation to start growing. Everything stands on vulnerability, and we account for those vulnerable parts of ourselves. We account for our own willingness to show up to ourselves. That is a vulnerable act. That's the ground we're walking on in the Heartmind method. I'm so excited. I'm going to start with a practice tomorrow, coming just into a very gentle acknowledgement of that vulnerable accountability and meeting that ground, meeting that floor. So I can't believe it, but it's already been 1 year since I've started the podcast, and I'm going into year 2. And I'd like to share with you on Heart Mind with Holli, what we're doing is transforming trauma, transforming ourselves, starting to rise up into our fullness through an embodied center in the heart mind. So I'm really excited to start to share with you where we're headed in season 2. The cadence on this channel is going to be starting with a theory episode, very sweet and short, but to the point, with teachings that will start to reframe how we're working with somatic, yoga, and breath work. And then going into a practice the next day. So every Wednesday, I'm going to drop a little teaching. Every Thursday, I'm going to drop a little practice that connects with that teaching. And finally, on Fridays, I'm going to review a source. It could be a movie, it could be a TV show, it could be a book, it could be a journaling kind of exploration podcast. Any of these sources that connect to the work that we do here that's similar or that can feed into helping you ground and live more fully embodied in your heart mind. So that's the cadence of the show in season 2. I'm incredibly excited. And every third week, so every third week of the month, instead of a theory just with me, I'm going to have a guest on the show sharing with a particular theme and about this same work. Last year, it was heavy with interviews. This year, I'm going to do one a month and share a colleague, friend, or someone that I truly admire, probably all above, some of their work, some of their thoughts, ways that they approach the heart mind. This month coming up, September is just around the corner. All of my programs, including this channel here, are going to go into the theme of roots. We're going into the earth. Every month I'll have an element. Every month I'll have a theme connected to that element. And this September, we're going into roots with the Heart Mind Club and in this channel. I invite you to join me on this journey of what it means to come to our roots, what we find in our roots, and what we're able to root into. Even understanding what we're not able to root into is part of developing intelligence in our roots. Every subscriber counts. We're going to give another good push for getting subscriptions. So if you know someone that could really use this method or this work and would benefit from this channel, please share this channel with your loved ones, with your friends. And I always have with the theory a little cup of tea. Make sure that you're nourishing yourself as you go forth into your day. I hope to see you for the next episode. Travel well, enjoy your yoga, enjoy your prana, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.